everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to the first episode of the year for the One-on-One podcast. So glad you could join us, and Happy New Year. Kristen Dalton Wolfe spent almost a decade chasing her dream. She wanted to be Miss USA. Going through Roland Grice Middle School and Hoggard High School here in Wilmington, she kept trying. She became Miss Greater Wilmington and then Miss North Carolina USA. And then in 2009, she did it. She was crowned Miss USA and achieved her dream. The very next day, Kristen realized it wasn't as fulfilling as she thought it was going to be. It wasn't until someone asked her a simple question that it all clicked. Since then, Kristen has become a successful model, motivational speaker, life coach, TV host, and author. Her third book is called The Sparkle Effect, and it aims to help women and girls overcome the same insecurities Kristen had at a young age. We talked about the sparkle effect during Kristen's recent visit to our studio. First off, let me officially welcome Kristen Dalton Wolfe back to Wilmington.
Yay!
And back into the studio, and welcome to One-on-One. I appreciate you taking the time today.
I'm so excited to be here.
This is great.
I know. It's been a few years since my last WECT interview. I had longer hair
this
back
is
then.
this is going to be your best one, I know, because I do want to talk about the sparkle effect here in just a moment. But I want to talk about Kristen and Wilmington and how often you get home, and do you miss it, and living on the West Coast?
I knew you were going to ask me that question. Like, I was driving here and I was like, he's going to ask me how often I get back home.
Right. Yeah.
And I used to come home so much, like 5 times a year. My sister Julia was still competing in Miss North Carolina Teen USA, Miss North Carolina USA. So I would come home and I was like pageant sister, like sistager, like her pageant mom.
Right.
But now that I have a baby, this is my first time home since last Christmas.
Yeah.
So this is my first time this year. I told my husband, I was like, I cannot believe that we haven't been home. But we were supposed to have our whole family reunion vacation at the beach in September.
Oh.
The exact same week that Harvey hit.
Yeah.
I meant Florence. Hurricane Florence hit. So it was crazy that entire week. So our whole vacation got canceled. My mom was so sad.
But you're on the West Coast, so you're still close to water. You're a beach kind of person. You love the water, don't you?
I love the water. I'm a water baby, and now my daughter is a water baby.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? The water in Los Angeles is not the same as it is here. I mean, here it is like bath water. You can get in, you can splash, you can play. Yeah. But there, I never get in. It's always cold. But it gets so hot there. But the water stays cold. I don't know what it is. I need a wetsuit.
I do want to talk about sparkle effect, and one of the things about this that I want to talk about first is I read it, and you talk about growing up, and you talk about performing, and you talk about home, but you really don't get specific. You don't mention Wilmington. You don't talk about Hoggard. And I'm wondering, did you know you wanted to do that? Did you want to keep it general? Did you not want it to be a book about home? What about it?
That's a good question. I don't think I really thought about it that much, probably because it doesn't necessarily relate to the reader. And so I think what matters is my feelings and how I was experiencing it versus specific, titles and cities.
Because those of
like
us who know you know that you went to Hoggard High School, know that you performed down at Thalian, know that you did all these things, and we're like, oh, I remember when she was Hoggard. I remember when she went to ECU. I remember all this kind of stuff. And as I went through some of the stories, when you were young, you were shy and you didn't have a lot of confidence in yourself. And that's not the Kristen that I've known for a long time.
Right. Well, I don't know if I would say that I was shy, but I was insecure.
Yeah, okay, that's the word.
In middle school and in high school. But as a child, I was very outgoing, very fearless, imaginative. I had big dreams. And then I think what happens as a teenager and a young adolescent is you start either getting left out or you start noticing, like, am I wearing the right clothes? You start wondering if you're pretty enough or if boys like you or if you fit in. And then all of these kind of questions start coming in. And I was a new girl at school. We just moved to Wilmington from Concord.
Right.
So it was my first year at Roland Grice Middle School in the 7th grade. I had a really short haircut. I had a face covered with acne and braces. So I did not feel pretty.
Yeah.
I felt really lonely at times. And so that was that whole phase. I mean, I felt like it was like 9 years of the ugly duckling phase I had to just kind of work through. But through all of that and through feeling insecure and even years of feeling depressed, I still had this dream of becoming Miss USA one day.
Right. Yeah. That was almost like ingrained in you.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was a constant. And and that's a really important message of the book is, we're going to go through years or phases or seasons of not necessarily feeling confident or feeling worthy of the dream that God put in our heart, but we still have to make a decision that we're going to believe that if God put a dream in our heart, that we are worthy of it, even when our feelings don't match up. And so that's what I would do. Like when I looked in the mirror and I saw a face looking back at me covered in acne, and the boy that I had a crush on called me tomato face or called me disgusting, or a girl at dance asked me, like, is something wrong with you? I still was like, they just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. God has told me I'm going to be Miss USA one day, and I'm going to push through and live as if I believe that, even when I don't feel like it.
Kristen, don't you know you are a daughter of the King? The turning point, wasn't it?
Paradigm shifting moment in my life. Yeah. 100%. I mean, my family raised me in the church, believing in Jesus my whole life. But there's a difference in having Christian values and knowing who you are. Walking with a confidence. Knowing what God says about you and knowing what you have access to. And so being a firstborn, I'm natural born like performer. I'm an approval seeker, validation seeker from adults. Like I want to do the right thing. I want to make my parents proud, make my teachers proud. And so, and I wanted to make God proud too. And so that put me in a position where I was operating from this place of emptiness where I was lacking something. So I was like striving. And so when someone told me one day after I was Miss USA, I had moved to Los Angeles. Someone told me for the first time, Kristen, don't you know that you are a daughter of the King? I know a lot of people might hear that now. It's kind of like a little bit more popular. That was a paradigm shifting moment because I was like, what? Hold on a second. First of all, I'm going to tweet that so my future husband knows that I'm special. Second of all, if I'm a daughter of the King, that makes me a princess and not just like, like a frivolous, like silly princess that wears pink and glitter like a Disney princess. Right. Even though Disney princesses are powerful. I quote them all throughout my book. Yes, you do. It makes me royalty. It makes me someone who knows who I am, who's operating from a place of victory rather than for victory. And so I got very passionate about what it meant, which really kind of shifted my entire career. I started a blog called sheismore.com. Right. I've written some other books too, Rise Up Princess, and then a journal that guides you into connecting with God's voice. But I was like, what does that mean? What does it really mean to be royalty, to be God's daughter? And that's really when you discovered the sparkle as well. And even though, I mean, the sparkle is out in you, but we all have that sparkle. Exactly. Is what you even you have it, John. Even I have it. Even I have it. We'll call it guy glitter. Guy glow. Glitter, yeah. Guy glow. But I find it interesting that in the book you say that even those who don't maybe know they have it, it's there. It's within them. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And what's interesting is the whole sparkle effect concept started as I was competing for Miss USA. I was not a front runner. I talk about this in the book. Yeah. I wasn't on anyone's prediction list other than, like my mom and myself, because I was like, even though you don't see it, God told me, and I'm just going to show you, so you just wait. Right. And I think we should all have that attitude. Not like in a cocky sense, but in this like quiet confidence of knowing, like, hey, if you have this stirring within you that has literally never gone away, you need to honor that and steward that well. By believing it and acting as if you believe it. So even though I wasn't a front runner, No one saw me coming. I was what you call in the pageant world a dark horse.
Yeah.
So, which is basically someone who surprises
Yeah,
you, you know?
Well, I mean, but they didn't know you, and they didn't know what was inside you
They
at the
didn't
time.
know.
Yeah.
So the head judge came up to me after I won that night, and she goes, I just want to let you know that after they announced the top 15, all the judges leaned into me, and they were like, how do we know who to pick? All these girls are really pretty. Mm-hmm. And she's like, you're going to see it in a girl. It's the girl who sparkles. It's in her eyes and in her smile. And then she said, after the commercial break, they all leaned back in and they were like, we see who you're talking about. We see the girl who sparkles. And she goes, Kristen, that girl was you.
Nice.
And at that point, I was like on my winning high. I didn't really like think much about it. I was just like, great, so glad it worked out, you know?
Appreciate it, yeah.
But then after I moved to Los Angeles and I started working in entertainment, going on commercial auditions, print auditions, started coaching girls in pageants and just even in their confidence and identity, started judging myself, I started to see firsthand what she was talking about, that it was true. We hear about this concept called the it factor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what she was talking about. It's like this thing, this radiance about you, this aura, but it's never really been defined. It's this mysterious thing, and it just leaves girls to fake it till they make it, or to turn it on. They're like, I don't even know what that is, you know? Right. So I guess I'm just going to like get on stage and smile even though I don't feel it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you don't feel it, but you act like it. Mm-hmm. And I don't like that because it makes it seem like there has to be this disconnect between who you really are and the persona you project in the world.
That's a fake too. That's not the real person either.
No, and then it leaves you a shell of a person, and it honestly ends up leaving you feeling depressed. Yeah. Because you're like, I don't even know who I really am. I'm just trying to please all the people.
So you grew more after you were Miss USA than you did before, in many ways.
Yeah. Even though I did have this like confidence about me and this backbone and resilience as I was competing. There's just been a whole nother level ever since. And that is the place that I want women, and especially young women and teen-age girls, to operate from at a younger age, so they don't have to go through questioning themselves, doubting themselves, trying to change themselves to please other people or to please the cool girls or whoever they want to like be their friends, or the boy who they want to like them.
But I think by you saying, hey, look, I wasn't Miss Popular, I wasn't Miss Pretty in middle school, I was insecure, and look at what's happened to you. You're the prime example of what a young lady who may be insecure can grow into. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is probably if you ask anyone that I went to school with, they would be like, I had no idea. I mean, people have even written me and been like, I had no idea, because I was really good at acting like I was confident.
Right.
I would walk through the hallways and be like, hey, like so friendly. I knew how to act like it because I'm a performer, but I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
And there were nights that I would cry myself to sleep and wish I never had to go to school the next day, you know.
As you go through and as you're doing the book, I can imagine that there are young ladies who you're reaching out to and you're hearing from. Is there a special story from a young lady that may have touched you since you released this book, that maybe brought you to tears, or somebody you talked to?
I just feel like I've gotten so many messages, and I feel like I cry with every single one, just because I'm like, it's just... I'm so grateful that my story and really what God has revealed to me and what He's done within me is able to touch people. I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head.
But there's going to be many, many young ladies that you will touch that you'll never know. And I said the same thing about our Frances Weller here, and she does the Weller's Wheels. And we got more than 1,000 bicycles this year for underprivileged children because of the storm for Christmas. And we got donations, and I said about Fran, I said, she's going to touch so many people that she has no idea, that she'll never meet. And the same thing with you. You're going to touch many lives that maybe when you're 60 or 65 years old, somebody's going to come up to you in the grocery store and say, you know that Sparkle Effect book? You really changed my life. Is that why you wrote it?
So interesting. I feel like there's so many reasons that I wrote it. I think a big part of it is just honestly stewarding what God has done within me. Like the work that He's done within me, the transformation that He's done within me, I want to steward that well. And and help more people. Multiply. It's like multiply the impact, you know, because I've done a lot of work to press in to get the breakthroughs and to get the revelations. So like, for instance, even after I was Miss USA, I remember I moved to Los Angeles, and I would like scroll on Twitter and check out like what other former Miss USAs were up to, what they were booking, to kind of measure my success and like how I was measuring up. And I would compare myself to them, or even Miss USAs who came after me, who then had, you know, Instagram. I didn't have Instagram when I was Miss USA, so they now have like 500,000 followers, and I would feel kind of jealous and triggered. Like if I would scroll past their thing and see that they were doing something that I didn't get to do, or they had an opportunity that I didn't have, that would make me feel intimidated or inferior or jealous. And I was like, you know what? I cannot, I can't do what God has called me to do if I feel this way about people. Like if I feel triggered in that way, if I can't actually feel happy for them, if my knee-jerk reaction is not celebratory, and if my knee-jerk reaction is jealous and inferior, then I can't actually be genuine in helping people and making impact. So I was like, God, you're going to have to do something. Like, we need to work this out. And so, I mean, I spent probably half a year trying to get breakthrough in that area, and it is so amazing. Like now I can see girls who are in my space doing the same exact thing that I'm doing have success and be like, oh my gosh, that's so awesome, good for them. And that is my true, genuine, behind closed doors reaction and feeling. And I want other people to have that too, because that is freedom.
But that's tough when you're a performer and you're somebody, whether it be a newscaster, whether it be an actress, whether it be a singer, you're competing for, in our case, ratings. In some other case, you want to be called for the next modeling shoot. You want to be number one on the charts and have somebody else be number 2 and 3. So there's always that sense of competition. And if you can feel better for somebody else and not necessarily like you're competing against them, that's a pretty big step.
It's huge. I mean, and it's also the comparison game. Like, even if you're not a competitor, if you're not a performer, it's still just this matter of like looking to the left and looking to the right to measure how you're doing and comparing, you know, is my husband as sweet as her husband? Like, did he buy me a diamond ring for Christmas? You know, did he buy me a car? Like, how come she gets this and how come like he's so godly and my husband isn't? You know, like those kind of like inner meditations that I feel like women have that honestly they just dull your sparkle. And it's not how you're meant to live.
What's it like to write a book? What's the process like? You've written this, your third one now.
So intense.
This is your third one now. I mean, take me back to that first day you said, I'm going to write a book.
Okay.
What'd you do that next day? Get a sharpen your pencil, get a pad out?
It's really cool because the idea of writing, I knew this is a book I've been waiting to write forever, but I just didn't know how it was going to be framed. I didn't know how it was going to be organized, like what it was going to look like exactly. So it really, and this is something I write about in the book too, is I got a vision from God in church one day. So I was in worship, and he gave me this vision of me as a 12-year-old girl, and I was sitting at the hearth of our fireplace with my short hair, and I looked sad. I had like sad eyes. And then he showed me when I really encountered him at the cross, and he put a crown on my head, and when he did, my entire countenance changed. It was like the moment in Cinderella where fairy godmother touches Cinderella, and she changes from her rags and her tears into who she really is. She is a princess. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, and tears were streaming down my face as I saw this vision. I was like, wow, this is what Jesus has done in my life. And he was like, I want you to tell other people. I want you to tell all the girls how they are princesses too, and how they get it and what that looks like practically. Like, let's break down what this quote sparkle is, or this quote it factor is, because everyone's trying to get it, but in the wrong ways. And they get to actually feel confident. They actually get to be confident. They don't have to fake it. So let's like work this out. And so there's this. So I kind of modeled it through, there's this book series called The Power of the Praying Wife. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, it's like best-selling book.
Okay.
Power of the Praying Mom, Power of the Praying, all the things.
Right.
So the way that she structured it is amazing, and I wanted it to be easily an easy to read book, like
it is.
easily digestible. So I broke it down into 31 chapters.
Right.
And each chapter is a concept, one that I have specifically dove into with God, gotten my own revelations. I've been through certain things in that area. And yeah, that's how I broke it down. 31 chapters. He told me to like start it, end everything in prayer, root everything in scripture. So.
That's neat. But I'm talking practically, like years ago when your first book, when you had an idea for the very first book, you weren't an author.
Right.
You were a college student, Miss USA, you were doing modeling.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I think I'm going to write a book.
Well, since I was little, I did have dreams of being an author.
But how did you get started? Was it difficult to put that first letter of the first word on a page or on a screen or on a typewriter?
No, it wasn't difficult. The most difficult part is, like I said, figuring out the structure of the book and the format and how you're going to outline it. Because once you have that in place, then you can move.
Okay.
It's really figuring out the structure. So my first book was Rise Up Princess,
right,
which is a devotional, 60 days of revealing your royal identity. And I think that every book, if you're asking basically if anyone wants to write a book and they're like, how do you even do it? I think that it all starts from I think the best way it can start is through a story, something you go through and you being personally inspired that you're like, this needs to get out. This message needs to get out, and this is the best way to break it down. So with that book, what happened was my husband and I went on a trip to Australia where we were speaking in youth groups and schools, and every single night I would like speak in the youth group, and then afterwards be with the girls. They would be in my lap like crying, telling me these are beautiful, like gorgeous teenage girls that I thought were so cool, like probably the popular girls at school, and they were crying in my lap, telling me what they were really going through, that they were suicidal, that they were depressed, that they had just been molested, or they had been raped, or they felt like they needed to have sex with their boyfriend, or whatever it was. And I was just sitting there like, what is going on?
Yeah. Like,
these are girls who were plugged into church. These girls are in youth group, and they don't know who they really are.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to bring them all home with me. I wanted to adopt all of it. I wanted to spend days with them and be like, this is, break it down. Like, tell them this is what God says about you. He says you're altogether beautiful. There is no flaw in you. He says that you are priceless. Like, you never have to settle. You never have to give yourself away to somebody. And so because I couldn't spend all that time with them, I was like, I wish I could leave them with something. Just be like, here, this is what you need. Here's the guide.
Here's a
like, let's break it down. Like,
yeah.
So that's what I did. That's what inspired me, is like, there needs to be something. And there was nothing out there that I could give them. So I created it. Rise Up Princess, 60 Days of Revealing Your Royal Identity. So it's broken up into what I feel like is kind of the journey with God, which is to reveal, first of all, like uproot the lies. And be like, oh, what does he say about me? And then the second one is She Radiates, which is all about what he says about your beauty and confidence. And then the third one is She Reigns, which is about your purpose and your calling. And it's all rooted in scripture. And then like a power prayer. And I call it a power prayer because it's not like a prayer like, hey, God, can you please help me with this? And can I have this? And da-da-da-da. Yeah. No, instead, it's thank you, God, that you say this about me. Thank you, God, that you say this about me. Thank you, God, that you have given me this. So it's like powerful in the sense that you're thanking him for what he's already given. You already have it. Like, you already have access to it. So it's not, don't like reach for it. Oh, it's like it's somewhere in the clouds. Like, no, he says that, as his daughter, you are called to be bold as a lion. So anyways, that's how I wrote my first book.
It's interesting. I mean, I write in little 30-second snippets and stories every day. And I've always like, I wonder what it would be like to actually write a book. And I've had several authors in here and asked them how they first got started. Some wrote down little ideas and charted things. Yeah. Just curious as to how you did it. What do you remember about Hoggard High School? The halls of Hoggard High School when you think back?
Well, it's funny because I was voted most spirited. That was my senior superlative.
Yeah.
So I really loved I really loved being involved. I was super involved at Hoggard. I was a cheerleader on student council, all the things. I love the teachers.
You were with Opera House Theater Company then too. What was that like for you? Did you grow there?
Opera House Theater Company was life for me. I didn't necessarily always love high school. I mean, my senior year, I tried to take as many off-campus classes as I could so I didn't have to go. But I loved it because it was an extracurricular activity where I could be with adults and I could be with people who weren't at high school. And yeah, there's so much, like you said. Did I grow there? Yes, so much. I mean, there's so much discipline that you have to have. I think discipline is the main virtue I probably grew in. But I love it. It's one of my fondest memories of Wilmington.
ECU, you were Dean's List top 7% of your class.
God, I forgot about that.
President of the sophomore class, and you were a double major there at ECU.
Yes. That was crazy.
I was going to say, what were you? Psychology, wasn't it?
It was yeah, psychology. Yes.
And what were your thoughts about a future at that point in time?
Well, I didn't really know what I was going to do career-wise, but I did know even going into high school, college, like I said, my dream was to be Miss USA.
Right.
So literally, I started preparing for that dream 9 years before I ever even set foot on stage. In the sense that in the 7th grade, I was like, okay, even though I don't feel beautiful, even though I don't feel confident, I'm going to believe what God says about me.
Well, you were Miss Greater Wilmington in 06, Miss first runner-up, Miss Teen North Carolina USA in 05. So you had experience in competitions leading up to 2009 2008 when you won.
Yeah. So I made a list of like short-term goals, long-term goals, because I studied, what Miss USA's and Miss America's, like, what were their bios, what were things that they had accomplished, and I kind of made short and long-term goals that emulated that in the sense that I would be a role model and that I would be a leader and that I was making impact and I was serving others. And so when I got to college, I did the same thing that really, just inspired all of my psycho motivation. I had no social life.
I talked to Victoria Huggins, who was Miss North Carolina and just finished her reign as Miss North Carolina. She actually worked here for a little bit. And I asked her this question, and I'm going to ask it to you. There's the outside thought of what pageant world is like. How do you have to try to work to make people believe that it may not be that way, that there is more than just standing up on a stage, lifting up your dress, curtsying, and walking backstage? There's more to this than what they believe is a beauty pageant, as it were.
Well, I wouldn't say that I necessarily I'm like, oh, let me try to prove everybody wrong, or I don't work for, to change anyone's opinion.
I'm not saying that, but there is a belief out there, I think, in the public that this is just all looks.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Victoria told me, that's one of the things I worked. She went out and she did so many appearances, and I know you did too. You raised money for breast and ovarian cancer education research. So there is a lot of work that goes into it. But what I'm saying is it's more than just looks.
And the preparation and the training that goes into it is so intense too. Definitely so much more than looks. But what I was going to say is people's perceptions change just when I encounter them or through conversations. I've had so many people say, I had no idea that you would be so down to earth. I had no idea that you would be so normal and genuine and cool. And I think that same exact thing happens when people do actually engage with and encounter title holders in the USA and America system. I think those title holders really do a good job of showing people they're such incredible, well-rounded women, leaders, servants, role models. Yeah. all the things.
When did you learn that mom was a title holder? Do you remember the time that you learned that she was a title holder?
I think I was probably 2 or 3. She had her crown and her trophy sitting on her dresser since I was a young girl.
Really?
I would try it on. She showed us her Miss North Carolina USA pageant. I was always so proud of her.
Right.
Like when people came to our house, I would be like, "My mama was Miss North Carolina," and she was like, "Don't tell people that." She hated when I told people that because she felt like it made her a target in a sense.
Yeah.
But I was always so proud of her.
There had to be some time when you realized that, wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was like super young because when I was 3 years old, I was like, I'm going to be Miss USA one day. Because my mom didn't make the top 15 at Miss USA. And I was like, oh, heck no. I'm going to go and redeem that.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there pressure? Did you put pressure on yourself to try to make and live up to that? Or it doesn't seem like I didn't get that from a lot of what I read.
No. My mom was not like a pageant mom in the sense that she was not about like spending a bunch of money on our wardrobe. Like she's like, you got to be gritty, you got to be resourceful, like model in exchange for a gown, and that's what we did. She was not the one who encouraged us to compete. I remember like going to parades and seeing like the beauty queens waving, and I was like, I want to be her. My mom's like, not until you're old enough to make a difference.
Right.
Not until you're old enough to where it actually matters. So for her, it was more important that we were developing a skill set. So yeah, I never felt that pressure from her, but I definitely put a lot of pressure on myself. That's just my personality type.
Yeah, I would imagine that if you knew you wanted to be Miss USA, then you probably wanted to do anything you could to get yourself to that level.
And I was super mean. I'm super mean to myself. Just like even now, it's something I struggle with. I'm very critical, very self-critical. If I'm not measuring up to my own standards, I'm like, you're so dumb, you're this, you're that. But I have to like constantly, reset my mind. Okay,
this question is going to sound a little strange. As Miss USA and as a title holder, obviously there are probably guys who are trying to do whatever they can to get your attention, to impress you as you are getting older. How did you know the difference between some of those other guys who were trying to get your attention and the guy you married?
Yeah, I think this kind of comes back to even something I talk about in the book, which is the person you really are is so much better than the persona you put out into the world. Mm-hmm. So you can feel a difference between someone who is masking, who is putting on, or who is charming. And there's a verse in the Bible that says charm is deceptive. So guys who are charming, I'm like, no, you are dangerous. Uh-huh. And Chris, my husband, is very real, very authentic, very like genuinely warm. The first time we met at a Bible study, and he came up to me, and there was no act, there was no game, there was no like flirting, no stupid pickup lines. It was just warm and, hey, so nice to meet you. How long have you been coming here? When did you move here? Like asking me sincere questions. And so I felt very relaxed and comfortable with him. So mm-hmm. I think that's the difference. And then just paying attention to how a person acts with different groups of people across time and across circumstances and across situations. And he is the same person all the time, and that was really important to me.
And he founded goodguyswag.com.
Yes, and he definitely has good guy swag. He chose the word swag because swag kind of has this negative connotation. Not negative, but it's like, ooh, he has swag.
Yeah.
And it applies to like a confident guy, but usually it's a guy who isn't necessarily treating girls right. So he wanted to show that good guys can have that swag too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Mom, what's motherhood like?
It's so hard.
No, I know. I have 3 children. I know what fatherhood's like. But, yeah. I mean, you carry yourself. You got the sparkle effect. You're confident. But it's tough to describe motherhood to somebody who doesn't know what it's like.
Yeah, it's like a whole nother level. I mean, I thought that I had been through hard things in life. I thought that I had accomplished, difficult things, but motherhood is just a whole nother beast. I mean, I think that there are some women who are really like anointed and called to be moms, and they just love it, and they love to like, puree their kids' food, and they love to do all the little cute things, but that's just not really me. So
Yeah,
it's been an adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a good mom sometimes.
I'm sure you're a great mom. But is it strange to care for someone like you've never cared for anything else in your entire life? That child?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I was just thinking about this, and I probably am going to write a book on it eventually, but like when people talk about how it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but the most rewarding. Like I don't really relate to that. I don't really feel rewarded.
Yeah.
I mean, now that my daughter is 18 months, I'm starting to enjoy her more.
Right.
Maybe it's just that I'm not really like a great baby mom, you know. I'm like,
right.
let's interact, you know.
Right,
I want her
yeah.
to like start talking.
Yeah. Fast forward to your 5 or 6 so I can take you to school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how it brings out stuff in you that you didn't
Yes.
know was there.
Yeah.
I'm very protective, very particular about certain things. So even my daughter has a lot of energy. She's very demanding. My mom is like, well, she's exactly like you were.
There you go.
So I can't really get too mad at her.
Is mom a great grandma?
Yes, she's awesome.
Yeah.
She flies out to LA a lot and helps.
Really?
And so does Krista's mom. We have great mothers.
Yeah.
And they actually like each other, so that's awesome.
What do you like the best about your life right now?
Well, this year has been very fulfilling in the sense that I've really been walking in what God has called me to in so many senses. I'm personal coaching young women. I love doing that. I have a women's ministry in LA where we meet weekly, and then we have these big monthly gatherings, and that's just growing, and I absolutely love. My favorite thing is to see and to lead women into transforming into the woman God created them to be. So I've been able to do a ton of that this year. I love speaking in churches and events and schools, but I really, really enjoy when we get to have quality time, or when I get to kind of have like a small group discussion with the girls after. It's so fun. So that's been really awesome. But this year has also been very challenging. What's interesting is even releasing this book, the months leading up to it and all of the work that I did to launch the book brought up stuff that I thought I was completely free from, just major self-doubt, really just being so hard on myself, feeling like I'm not legit, you know, or like I'm kind of an imposter, or like I'm trying to be like this. I'm trying to release this book, and I'm trying to make it a big deal, and I'm trying to like reach as many girls as possible. But maybe like this is one of the thoughts I had one day. Is like I was like, maybe there are some people who are just born to be winners in life, and I'm not born to be a winner. I'm just trying to be something that I'm not. And so it brought out that kind of stuff in me, and I was like, this is so crazy, because this is stuff that I write about in my book.
I was as you're sitting there telling me that, I was like, that doesn't sound like you, because you're trying to tell people in your book ways to not be like that.
Right. So I think what happened was, I was like, what's going on, you know? And I think what happened was I was entering into new territory for me that I'd never entered into before. And I was taking on new ground. And when you enter into new levels, there are new devils. So
interesting.
You're
That's a great line. I love that.
New level, new devil. So entering into new territory or doing new things will stir up stuff within you because our inner healing and our freedom and all that stuff, it's maintenance. And so that's what I'm learning. It's not like you get this breakthrough and you're free from it forever. Like, you got to keep working on it.
Yeah. By the way, thank you for helping raise money for breast and ovarian cancer. My wife is a breast cancer survivor.
Wow.
We lost her mom to breast cancer, lost my mom to ovarian cancer.
What? Wow.
So I want to thank you for that. Thank you for helping that, because every little bit helps, I believe, to finding a cure for cancer.
Yes.
And it reaches out and touches so many families that you just never know when somebody you know is going to be touched by it.
I know. I feel like everybody knows somebody who's been affected by cancer, breast, ovarian, in some way. Yeah. And I tell people when Sheila was diagnosed with breast cancer, it
raised me to a level I never thought I could be a caretaker to somebody like that. I did things when she had breast cancer that I never thought I could do. Emptying bags and stuff. I never thought I could. I hate blood. I hate the sight of blood.
Wow.
But you help somebody get through it the best you can, like you're doing with the sparkle effect.
Yeah, it's like those things in life that you never think is going to actually happen to you.
No.
Like you hear about it, and then you're like, wait, hold on, how is this my life? And then you're like, oh, this is my life.
Yeah.
And then it stretches you. It stretches you and it grows you, and it honestly, don't you feel like it expanded your capacity to do more?
Oh, yeah. It allowed me to have confidence in to be able to do those things that I doubted myself before.
Right.
I never thought I could do
if
that.
I could change her fluid bags,
Yeah.
then I can really slay at my job at
I
WECT.
could do
Forget any
anything else.
challenge or any criticism that comes in.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
could do that. Yeah, it really was a growth part in my life. But again, anybody that helps with raising money for cancer research, I wanted to thank. You've been very kind with your time today, but I do want to ask you two questions that I try to ask everybody here on the One-on-One podcast. Fill in the blank. It's a great day when blank.
Oh my gosh. It's a great day when I get at least half a day to myself to either read, just have quiet time, honestly, with God, and I really love getting massages. And if I could fit a workout in too.
Okay.
Like these days, I'm like, if I have time alone, that's a good day.
I don't like it when blank.
Oh. I don't like it when there's conflict. I hate conflict. I don't like it when people are mad at me. It's like the worst feeling.
Yeah.
But then it's really fun to practice healthy confrontation and conversations and work it out.
Yeah.
And to practice humility.
Yeah.
Like, did I actually do something wrong? And learning how to say I'm sorry.
And grow from it?
And yeah, totally.
Grow from it.
It's really cool.
Okay, new mom. The book is called The Sparkle Effect, number 3, and I'm sure that there are many more in your future. It is great to have you back in Wilmington, even though it's only going to be for a little bit, about a week around the holidays.
Yes.
Where can people get a hold of you? Give us the website and everything else like that, and your coaching and everything else.
Yeah, well, you can go to my Instagram at Kristen J. Dalton. Sheismore.com is my website, my blog, and then all my information. Oh, and then my Instagram for my personal coaching is called Train to Reign Coaching. So they can get all the information there.
You can get a hold of you. Just look on social media. Just search Kristen Dalton Wolfe on social media. You'll get there. It is great to see you again.
So good to see you too.
It
Thank
is so great, and we are so happy that things are going well. Even though you're on that other coast, we're still very proud of you here in southeastern North Carolina.
Thank you, John.
A big thank you to Kristen Dalton Wolfe for sharing some of her time during the trip home and sitting down for this week's podcast. Kristen, her husband Chris, and their daughter Aurora live in Los Angeles now, and they're going to welcome a baby boy to the family later in 2019. So big congratulations there. Now, where do you find Kristen Dalton and get in contact with her? Sheismore.com. That's one place to go. And look up Kristen J. Dalton on Instagram. And don't forget, The Sparkle Effect is brand new at bookstores. And before we go, I'd like to ask you one more time, please rate and review the One-on-One with John Evans podcast. The more ratings and reviews we get, the higher we'll be listed on all of our podcast sites. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of One-on-One.